Hello, everybody. I'm always happy to be back with you guys. This is Michael Voss, and I am the Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I am here on No Soundbites Allowed with you, and we're able to be seen on the Exceptional Conservative Network. I'm happy to be back with you guys. I've been talking with my intern, John, here for a little bit, and we're going to have him on in a second speaking, but one of the things that I wanted to also mention, because I should have mentioned it a little bit before, if you are in the Binghamton area, please drop by my friends over at the Belmar Pub and over at the Park Diner. This is not a paid advertisement. They're just my friends. I enjoy going to their businesses and being able to have great food, great drinks, and enjoy good company. And I advise you, if you're in the Binghamton area, please drop by the Belmar Pub or the Park Diner. Tell them Mike sent you. So with that said, and I did want to include them, and I apologize that I didn't mention them in the first hour that we've been here, but that's right, we're here for 2 hours. Normally on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're on for 1 hour, but on Saturdays, we spend an extra hour listening to you, looking for your comments in our chat room, contacting us on phone at 607-242-9247, or on our Twitter at MVConsult, because we enjoy hearing from you in all of the formats that are out there. Now, the second hour, in the first hour, we went through a lot of upsetting good news that we beat YouTube at their own game. That's right. That YouTube came out to censor the creators, and guess what? We fought back and we won the challenge against them. But we want to hit 4,000 subscribers. We want to hit 4,000 likes. We want to hit 4,000 views on any video on our site, including the public service announcement, Fight Shadow Banning. That's right, hashtag Fight Shadow Banning. You'll see that on our page on YouTube. Please like it, share it, let people know. Support all of the content creators that you enjoy, whether it's in video games or music videos, movie reviews, political commentary. I don't care what it is. If it's cats playing, I don't care what it is. Like it, share it, comment, subscribe, and don't let YouTube shut down their voices, because that's the First Amendment. That's your right, and they don't get to do that if they are a neutral organization. And if they're not neutral, they need to tell you that. Tell us all so we can play by the rules and know what we're dealing with. But that's being said, I want to move on and talk about some of the other things that have been very interesting in the area. We talked a little bit about the unemployment, and that the economy is actually more stable than we think, than we're told it is by many of the politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. What we're seeing is a very stable, full employment, and it's probably going to stay that way unless Bill Maher gets his preferences and we see that the economy gets destroyed, which would be upsetting. But one of the things I wanted to bring up before we go further is talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yes, she is one of our favorites here on the show. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who never is at loss of being able to remind us that even sea sponges are smarter than her. In fact, she reminds us that one of our favorites on the show is our friend Minion, who's always here, and he, right this second, is able to say more intelligent things than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You can see him on the screen, and you know what? You didn't hear anything from him. That's smarter than what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said since the day that she won her primary, in my opinion. So media matters. Yeah, prove me wrong. And one of the things that caught our attention, and this is something that caught the attention of intern John, so I'm going to turn over. Go ahead, John. Tell us a little bit about this.
So pretty much AOC was doing a congressional hearing with the FBI regarding white supremacist terrorism and domestic terrorism and counterterrorism and things like that. And pretty much one of the experts on domestic terrorism and counterterrorism was speaking at the panel, and she got into a spat with him about what he was saying and how he was wrong about his definitions, even though he works for the FBI.
Okay. So to be clear, we're talking about, and this is, you can see this from a tweet by Ryan Saavedra, who's a reporter at the Daily Wire, and he mentioned that FBI Assistant Director of Counterterrorism, Michael McGarrity, was the one who was having a back and forth with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about terrorism, domestic terrorism, and the crimes that have faced the nation. And in fact, we're going to play a little bit of that conversation, actually the full thing, of what they said to each other so that you can hear what's going on.
The Emmanuel AME Church shooting of Black Americans in Charleston and the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh of Jewish people, those were only designated and charged as hate crimes, not domestic terrorist incidents. Mr. McGarrity, why did the FBI not believe that these incidents were domestic terrorist incidents?
That's not correct. I don't know who told you that we didn't, but we certainly had cases open on them in both those cases, and I wasn't here for the Dylan Roof case, but it's certainly in our own Department of Justice Civil Rights about 3-4 weeks ago, and their testimony actually stated that it was a domestic terrorism event charged through the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice for a hate crime. I was here for the Tree of Life. I will tell you, I remember that day distinctly. It was worked as both a domestic terrorism case and a hate crimes case, and it still worked that way.
And so you are disputing that the AME, you're saying that AME was charged with domestic terrorism, Dylan Roof.
So you're using the word charge. So as I said before, there's no domestic terrorism charge like 18 U.S.C. 2339 A, B, C, D for a foreign terrorist organization. So what we do, both on the international terrorism side with homegrown violent extremists and domestic terrorists, we'll use any tool in the toolkit to arrest them, hopefully left of attack. Should it be after, likely that hate crime statute will come to play through the Civil Rights Division as a charge, because it's a good federal charge for us to use in defense of domestic terrorism.
But the actual charge, was the actual charge domestic terrorism?
You're not going to find an actual charge of domestic terrorism out there. If you look at Title 18, right? If you're looking for...
Well, it says here that, but at the San Bernardino shooting or the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting, they were designated and charged as domestic terrorist incidents.
They were charged, I'd have to go back and look, they were charged likely with, if there was a connection to a foreign terrorist organization, it would likely fall under 18 U.S.C. 23 A or B.
All right. So that's the first part of it, and I think it's really important. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is trying to make a very political case. She's trying to say that, hey, you're not being PC. You're not being politically correct. That this is a violation of people's freedom to have a religion, and that the government is attacking one group of people who happen to be people of color, and this is unfair because white supremacists should be attacked for the same thing. So, and in fact, one of our members of Congress failed to understand that there is no law like she's saying it is. And he goes further. Mr. McGarrity goes on and has further comments about this, and I want to play that as well. So again, you can hear in context everything that's going on. So let's hear a little bit more of what he had to say.
So because the perpetrator was Muslim, doesn't it seem that because the perpetrator is Muslim,
that's not correct. That has nothing
that
to do,
the designation would say it's a foreign organization?
It's not correct. That is not correct.
Okay. Can you explain why?
So, homegrown violent extremists, most of the people we arrest in the United States, homegrown violent extremists, self-radicalized, born in the U.S., doesn't matter what religion.
But the Orlando Pulse Club shooter meets those qualifications, and you're implying...
He was worked as an international terrorist because he was following under the definition...
But he was homegrown and self-radicalized.
How we work homegrown violent extremist cases under the global jihad, we worked under international terrorism. That is correct.
Is white supremacy not a global issue?
It is a global issue.
So why are they not charged with foreign?
Because the United
Terrorism.
States Congress doesn't have a statute for us for domestic terrorism like we do on a foreign terrorist organization like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab.
And there you go. Okay, again, we're seeing the ever so popular, ever so wonderful Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is trying to create law that doesn't exist and enforce it on our government and on our people. She's out there trying to make up things and trying to, if you're not listening to her, you're going to hear her say, oh, well, this is the answer. No, it's not. You don't know what you're talking about. You're mixing up and confusing things and trying to make it sound like one thing as opposed to another. I mean, am I misunderstanding that, John?
No, absolutely not. And I kind of wanted to tune in on this one because I am a college student and I know I deal with a lot of college progressives on a daily basis. Being young and conservative, it's different on a college campus. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is treated as their messiah, almost. And I said on our last podcast, some people view her as a saintly figure. And it's really, I find it hard to, find these videos of her actually talking, or if I ask someone who really likes AOC, have you seen this video with her or anything? They go, no, I've only seen her Twitter. And after this hearing, despite the fact that she was proved wrong, she goes, well, my team fact-checked it. The actual quote is, first the FBI witness tried to say I was wrong. I tried to be generous and give benefit of the doubt, but then we checked. I wasn't.
And I want to mention that no one less than ABC News, which is definitely not left-leaning by anyone's definition. Not right-leaning. They are left-leaning by most people's definition. ABC News came out, and they mentioned that, and the article is, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez appears to conflate two types of FBI cases in viral video. This was published on June 7th of this year at 5:10 p.m. So that was yesterday. And that article goes on in it to highlight how that she's wrong. And where is the exact, and I want to go through, there is a certain line in here, and you can read the article for yourself. But they mention in there, here it is, I can't speak now. But Ocasio-Cortez appeared to be confusing two different types of FBI cases, a mix-up that even law enforcement officials outside the FBI often make too. None of the perpetrators in those ISIS-inspired cases was designated or charged as a domestic terrorist. Instead, they were each designated and charged as homegrown violent extremists, which may sound like a domestic terrorist, but is actually quite different, at least to the FBI. Okay, so what they're saying very simply, that the law doesn't let you get to do this. When you're talking about the San Bernardino shooters, who were ISIS, they were inspired by ISIS, they were claimed to be members of ISIS, and that they were conducting an act of terrorism for ISIS is not going to be looked at in the same way as a white supremacist running around saying that they just don't like the government and that they have racist ideology. They're not the same thing. Are they both problems? Absolutely. But by the law, they're different. The law is, that's the way Congress wrote the law. They're different. One is based on an international, radical, fanatical ideology of terror, and one is based on a homegrown, domestic, extremist point of view, which are not the same thing. And let me ask you, John, you're on college campuses?
Yeah.
Did anyone in a college campus, any of the students that you know where that environment exists for far left reaching, does anyone mention the difference?
No one mentions the difference. And now they're going to think, because I guarantee most of the college progressives I know don't research other than the tweets. They take it as Bible for a lot of leftist progressives. So whatever Bernie Sanders says is the truth. They don't do the fact checking. And I know more of my conservative friends, and I think this is kind of a difference, they will always fact check, right or left. They'll always fact check the source. But for most of these left-leaning individuals, they'll take it as gospel. So now that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said that these people were charged with domestic terrorist cases and that there's a bias, from the FBI when pursuing terrorist cases, they're going to take it as gospel. They aren't going to do the extra research. They're not going to go the step beyond.
No.
And it's going to be much harder to debate with these people, and it makes it harder to share ideas when you go, nope, this is fact, when it isn't.
Yeah, and the thing is that ABC News made it very clear. There is no proof. She says she fact-checked it. No one knows how she fact-checked it. There's no evidence. She didn't provide, even in her tweets, where is the evidence that said, hey, here's a fact check. Here's where you can go and see the source where I was proven right. No, they are the same thing. Here's the law as he was asking for it. 18 USC. Here is the U.S. Code of Law that says this is the crime. Doesn't exist. Oh, yes, but we fact-checked it. Then what's the crime? What's the code in the United States law that says this is the crime? It doesn't exist, but she doesn't care, obviously. She wants to be right. And you know what? We have something about that, and I want to point that out because we've heard this kind of thing before where she wants to be right, and that's the most important thing. Have you heard this?
My real objection is that I don't think political correctness works. I want to achieve, I want to get to Golden Hill, but I don't think that's the way to get there. I believe one of the greatest human failings is to prefer to be right than to be effective. And political correctness is always obsessed with how right it is without thinking of how effective it might be. I wouldn't class myself as...
So that's, in case you were wondering, that was Stephen Fry, a very well-known and very well-noted left-leaning liberal. And he's talking about how the left wants to be right. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to be right. It's not that they are right. They feel like they're right. I'm sure Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was speaking to the FBI director and she felt like she knew there was a law. But the reality is, the fact is, there's no law. She feels like she fact-checked it and feels like she found something, except there's no way to type out feelings onto Twitter. You can't show your Twitter and say, here's my feeling. Isn't that right? You can't win a court case going into the courtroom and telling the judge, I feel like I'm right. And the judge is going to say, well, that's fantastic. The law says you're not. And you lose. You don't get to make a law going, well, because we feel like this should be the case, and looking at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's history, if we can call it that, her desires for, say, green energy, that just because she feels like green energy is a great idea, that doesn't mean it's going to work. It doesn't mean that the wind is suddenly blowing and windmills are suddenly generating power and solar energy suddenly working. It doesn't magically create energy. It doesn't magically let someone build a railroad in less than 10 years across the entire nation to every city and every town in the nation and have that reach Hawaii. Just doesn't happen because feelings don't make that happen. Facts, someone actually building stuff actually makes that happen. And resources and, real world material, life makes it happen. Not because she said, well, that'd be really nice. And once again, as we saw, according to ABC, she can't find the proof. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, that leads to some other fun things happening, like when we see that Fox News comes out and they put in their AOC schooled by FBI counterterrorism officials after suggesting white supremacists are getting off the hook, which is an article by just a few hours ago on Saturday, June 8th, by Fox News. And of course, they wasted no time mentioning how she's making all these claims, but can't find any proof, that she can't stand up to it. And of course, they highlighted the comments by Michael McGarrity, the counterterrorism division of the FBI, when he said, you're using the You're using the word charge. As I said before, there's no domestic terrorism charge like 18 U.S.C. 2339 ABCD for foreign terrorist organizations. Okay? He goes on to say what we do both in the international terrorism side with the homegrown violent extremists and domestic terrorism. We'll use any tool in the toolkit to arrest them. This is pretty simple stuff. But somehow Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doesn't believe that. And when you're looking at a tweet, which I hate, this is why we have no sound bites. Because Alexandria's soundbite is, oh my God, it's racist. That's her feeling, for one. And two, it's a soundbite. It means nothing. Oh, it's racist. And I'll give her the benefit of doubt. It's racist. Okay, if it's racist, is it law? Is there, you know what? Let me ask you, John, you're in college.
Yep.
John the Intern. John, and I'm going to use the image of Minion for you.
Thank you.
While.
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So, John the Intern, let me ask you a question. I want to protect you from your college friends for some of the comments we're going to make here. So, let me just ask, is there a law against racism?
No, I mean, it's under freedom of speech. I mean, if you're actively going out and, hurting people. Or,
No, that would be, if I hurt someone, that's an assault.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not talking about assault. And I'm not talking about free speech, because there are laws on the ability to speak, even though YouTube wants to violate them and to shadow ban and to restrict people. So let's throw that out. That's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about racism. Is there a law against racism?
I don't believe so.
There's a law against slavery. You can't have slavery in the nation. We fought a war, not as the primary reason. Remember, do your research, folks. It was actually it wasn't even a tertiary or third reason. It was like the fifth on the list. It was like item E to get to in the Civil War. We actually fought the Civil War over economics. Don't believe me? Look it up. The fact is, we weren't fighting the war because we wanted to free the slaves. That was a side product. That was a benefit. That wasn't why we had the Civil War. Even though people like to revise it and Democrats like to tell us that that's what it was about, even though Democrats were the slave owners and they were the ones responsible for the KKK. But that's another thing. I'm sidetracking. So can we name, and I would ask this of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is there a statute that says racism is illegal?
No, I would say.
Because there isn't.
Yeah.
There isn't a law. Now, she may feel like there should be. Maybe people think that should be true. There isn't one. It isn't true. There is no law on racism. Now, there's a law about employment and having equal employment, but that's not racism. That's not about racism. We don't have a law that says you're a racist, so you go to jail. They may want to have one, and I do not doubt that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would try and create one, but there is no law that says racism equals jail. We have an environment that says that if you're accused of something, we have the environment that says, well, that means you're guilty, which they apply to Kavanaugh, they apply to Trump, they apply to basically any conservative, not to people like, who was the Senator Smalley? What's his name? The comedian.
Louis C.K.?
No. The comedian who was elected to the Senate.
Franken?
Al Franken, that's right.
The one.
Al Franken, he didn't get the same. He was guilty, admits he's guilty, and Democrats were like, well, no, we should keep him in office. They wanted to keep him because the rules don't apply to themselves. They apply to you and me. But for themselves, no, because they tried to keep Al Franken in office, even though he was not just accused, but admitted of his sexual assaults. So it's kind of funny. It drives me nuts when I see this, that they have these differences in the rules and the different ways they want to look at one set of people versus another set of people, because it's unfair, it's unjust, and it's wrong. And by the way, folks, again, if you want to check out where did we get the tweets from, again, that's from Ryan Saavedra, Saavedra. In case you're listening to the program on audio only, you can look it up on his channel, on his Twitter account at Real Saavedra, and you'll be able to see that. And that was from June 7th at 1:56 p.m. Or you can go where he got it from on C-SPAN and be able to see the whole thing. So I just want to make sure people knew where to get that from. So now that we have that taken care of, you know what? It's time for yet another break. But I think that was a good segment. I wanted to talk about that, and I'm glad that our intern John brought it up so that we can have that in there. Then we'll come back. We're going to talk a little bit about silencers. I know everyone's been hearing about it, but you really haven't heard the truth about it. So let's talk about silencers and what this really means. So we'll be back in just a moment, and we're looking for your comments in the chat room. We're looking for it on Twitter at MV Consult. You can call into the show at 607-242-9247. Please remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe to all of the comment that you love on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, because that's the only way to make sure it's going to be there tomorrow. And if you don't, your content may not be there. But we'll be right back in just a moment with some more. All right, folks, thank you for joining us back here at the ever so popular No Soundbites Allowed on the Exceptional Conservative Network, one of your favorite podcasts that are out there on YouTube, at least until they shadow ban us and then you can't find us anymore. But that, and up until that day and even beyond, we're going to still be here. And we're going to continue to keep putting out this information for you because it's important and that's what we need to do. And we have the First Amendment right to do so. Please support us. Subscribe, like, share, let people know. And if you can, donate $1 or $2 because that helps us keep the lights on. And also, more importantly, please be sure to make, if you're in the Binghamton area, drop by our friends at the Belmar Pub or the Park Diner. That is not a paid advertisement. They're just our friends. We enjoy their show. We enjoy their establishments, food and drink, and the company there. And I think you will too. If you do drop by, let them know Mike Voss sent you. So as I mentioned, we've been going over a lot in the second hour here. We've been talking a lot about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the way she wants to make up laws, just make up stuff. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's just saying it. And that's just upsetting. I mean, that's one of the biggest misuses of Congress. That's one of the biggest misuses of the free speech. And putting it out there on Twitter saying, well, no, she feels like she's right. And so that means she's right. No, it doesn't. Facts are still facts. And you still got to prove things. So I wanted to go and talk about something else, though. And I wanted to bring up gun silencers. Now, obviously, there's been a big deal about the Virginia Beach shooting, which is first a Second Amendment issue, and I'm, a big supporter of the Second Amendment. And every time that there's a mass shooting, there's always a big argument about, well, is it okay to have this type of gun or that type of gun? Now, in the Virginia Beach shooting, what we see is that this is an individual who's disturbed, undeniably disturbed. Something is wrong with him because he made the decision to go out there and hurt innocent people for no reason. And there should never be, no one should ever come to the conclusion that because no matter how bad your life is, that your only answer is to go out and hurt innocent people. That is wrong. I denounce that. I tell you right now, I don't care whether you're a fanatical religious person or you're just a fanatic in general or you're deranged, whatever the reason is. And no one knows what that reason is. But whatever your reason, if you come to the conclusion that means I should go out and hurt innocent people, stop right there. No, you shouldn't. Do something else. Go find some help. Ask someone. Go to someone, get counseling, talk to a priest or your religious figure, and they should all come back and none of them should say, yes, hurting innocent people is a great idea. If they did, you're going to the wrong source. Go somewhere else. But speak to somebody. Don't go forward. Don't do that. Because the problem isn't the gun. It's the person who makes that decision. The problem with the Virginia Beach shooting wasn't the type of firearm used, which we know wasn't a AR-15. It wasn't a semi-automatic rifle, otherwise known as an assault weapon, according to Democrats who have never fired a gun and have no idea what they're talking about. We're talking about people like Senator Dianne Feinstein, who has no clue about firearms whatsoever. A woman doesn't even know how to hold, you can look it up on YouTube, she doesn't even know how to hold a rifle because she holds it with her finger on the trigger. It's like she's the deadliest person in the world. But, and I should have pulled up that image, but I didn't know I was going to mention it. But anyway, and you can see it on YouTube. It's crazy. She's just dangerous. But one of the things that we've heard about the Virginia Beach shooting, because there was a silencer that was used, which to my knowledge in mass shootings has never happened before. And John the Intern, let me ask you, let me double check with you here. Do you know off the top of your head at the moment, is there any other case where you've heard of a silencer being used in a mass shooting?
No, I haven't heard of any time to get for a silencer to be used. And I mean, it's a really long process to even get a silencer too. If I remember correctly, you have to go through certain licensing. So I don't think.
Well, that's part of the facts.
Yeah.
And the facts are that to be able to get a license, first of all, having a silencer, or sometimes they're called suppressors, because they don't silence a firearm. It's not like a movie where you can't hear it. In fact, it takes a regular gun from being the sound of a gun, which is about 160 decibels, and it reduces that to 130 decibels, which means it sounds like a thunderclap. So it is still very clear that it is a gun being fired, unless you think lightning happens indoors. So it's not like it's suddenly like a movie. This isn't a James Bond film where, you know, you can run around with a silencer and shoot in the middle of, or even in John Wick, John Wick 2, which I'm not spoiling anything. It's in the trailers. But John Wick is walking through a crowd of people, and so is Common, and they're shooting silenced pistols at each other, and no one else, and there's a whole crowd of people who are standing around them, and no one reacts. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an old movie anyway. It's like 5 years old at this point.
Well, that doesn't make it old.
Yeah.
I'm talking to someone who's in his 20s. He thinks, 5 years is old. Okay. But anyway. But more importantly, yeah, so that's the movie version, and that's where it seems that's where most Democrats or people who are against the Second Amendment, they seem to get their idea of firearms from whatever they saw in the latest movie. You can look at that. They have silencers on there. They can fire in the middle of a crowd and no one will know about it. Are you stupid? No, of course not. That's a movie. That's why guns have endless bullets. You can shoot off you have a revolver and it fires 15 times because, who needs to reload? No, it's stupid. But that being said, and I believe it's correct that there is no case of a mass shooting where a silencer has been used before. And it is true that silencers are not illegal. They are not illegal. Let me make that very clear. Say it a third time, because I know there's some member of plot that's out there right now, or Citizen Action, that is saying, you just don't know what you're talking about, Mike. Yes, I do. Silencers are legal. They are defined under the National Firearms Act of 1934, NFA 1934. Look it up if you don't believe me. That silencers are allowed, just like you are allowed to have a machine gun. You are allowed to have a tank. You are allowed to have a flamethrower. Though you can get those if you have a federal Title I license. With a federal Title I license, you are allowed to have them. They are all legal. It is a little bit harder. Actually, it's a lot harder to get it. And with a suppressor, it takes, you have to have $200 just to apply for the license, on top of a lot of background checks and everything else. But you can get it. And there are roughly 1.3 million people in the United States right now that do, in fact, have a silencer. Now, this is data that's actually about 2 years old, but I wanted you to know, according to the Free Beacon and according to the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, there are approximately 1.3 million people who own silencers registered in the United States as of 2017, February. And at this moment, there's expected to be closer to about 1.5 million. That's an estimate. So they do exist. They are legal. They aren't silent, unless you think a thunderclap is silent. And if you do, you need a hearing aid. So, and I think that John's not listening now because I thought that was funny. Anyway, that being said, so we know that they exist. Now the question is, of course, because he used it in the shooting, there is now a debate. And of course, that debate comes from our friends over at the Huffington Post. Are you shocked yet? Of course it comes from the Huffington Post. The Huffington Post is saying, quote, debate over gun silencers resurfaces following Virginia Beach shooting. Actually, there really wasn't a debate about this, but okay. They said this on June 5th. And their idea is that silencers are deadly. They're horrible. They're terrible. You have to get rid of them because they will kill you. In fact, if you were to go over to the Giffords Law Center, which is also a left-leaning think tank, an organization to prevent gun violence, which is basically an anti-Second Amendment organization, so you know who you're dealing with here, they say that silencers are inherently dangerous devices that criminals could use to suppress the sound of gunfire and mask muzzle flash. These deadly accessories have been effectively regulated since the 1930s, and would make it difficult for people who are nearby to identify the sound of gunshots and locate an active shooter. Okay, let's get back to reality here. Again, unless you think a thunderclap is silent, guns, a suppressor or a silencer is not silent. This is not the movies. This is not John Wick. Quite simple. If you think firing any firearm is like what you saw in John Wick, well, actually John Wick is pretty good. Think of any, James Bond, then you're wrong. If you think the sound that they make comes out of a movie like Hollywood makes, you're wrong. If you're watching movies to get your idea of what a firearm is, stop. You've made a mistake. You're wrong. That's just that. These are facts. You may not feel like that it's wrong. It's wrong. And that's what I would suggest to the Giffords Law Center and to many of the politicians. Stop watching movies. Go out to a gun range and actually talk to people and learn something about this, because this is wrong. To say that silencers are inherently dangerous is like saying that your Toyota is inherently dangerous. That's like saying your steak knife is inherently dangerous. That's like saying this lighter is inherently dangerous. This lighter will start a fire. If I have a can of hairspray, it becomes a modified flamethrower. It could light anything on fire with this. You know what? Does that make this inherently dangerous? Is your steak knife inherently dangerous because it cuts? You could make that argument. It would be silly and foolish, but you can make that argument. A fork is inherently dangerous if you have the intent. Again, it goes back to intent. But let's really think about this. So they want to have the debate about this. And here's the thing that I find really interesting about this. And again, if you go back to the ATF article, there are 44 silencer-related crimes every year. That's it. And you might say to yourself, that doesn't sound right. No, it's right. On average, every year, 44. And you're wondering, well, that must be a lot. There are over 16,000 forms of or events involving a gun in the nation. Not necessarily gun violence, but just someone holding a gun, showing a gun, pistol whipping someone, whatever the case. So there's about 16,000 incidents in any given year. 44 involve a silencer. Can you imagine that? Okay, you doing what that works out to? 0.003%. 0.003%. That's how bad it is. And they're talking about, well, we have to ban this because that's it. There are silencers and everyone is going to die. You know what? If you banned the 1.3 million silencers in the nation, 1.5 million, and everyone couldn't have them, it wouldn't make a difference. It doesn't do anything. There's one mass shooting that occurred because someone had one silencer. We're not even sure where he got it from. We don't know if it was legal or not. That still hasn't been determined yet. But let's say we got rid of it. He had two firearms. The problem wasn't because he had a silencer that everyone died. It was because he was crazy. I mean, can I make it that simple for you? It was because he was crazy. The crazy guy went and killed a bunch of innocent people. He made the decision somewhere in his mind. The decision came up and he said, hey, the only answer I have is to go out and hurt innocent people. He quit his job, realized, oh, you know what? If I quit my job, I can't go back there. So I can hurt innocent people. So he went back and hurt innocent people immediately. And it wasn't, oh, well, because of the silencer. It's not because he had the silencer and people couldn't figure out where he was. It was because he had been working there for 6 years. He knew every room. He was able to barricade himself against the police when he had a gun battle with the police. He knew where he could go so they couldn't come around and flank him, so that they couldn't take him out easy. He knew what he was doing. He knew where he was going. He had an intimate knowledge of the location. It wasn't because they couldn't hear the bullets, which they could. even witnesses at the event knew that something was happening. They heard it. They heard them firing. It wasn't normal. They knew that there were gunshots going off. But they were shocked. And here's the problem. It's not the silencer. Look at every single report and every witness who has survived or been involved in any mass shooting anywhere in the world. Again, anywhere in the world, because America ranks 66 in the world, not number one, 66 in the world. And you ask anyone who survived this kind of mass violence, especially where a gun is involved, and they will tell you, and again, I'm talking about whether they use a knife, a car, a bomb. The first thing that happens, and the thing that makes it so dangerous, nobody knows what's going on for the first couple of minutes. That's why it's so vital that these incidents always stop when someone with a firearm engages the bad guy. The bad guy doesn't stop until they are killed or someone engages them and they give up. They don't just go out there and they say, and I'm asking you this, John, I'll ask it again, because you're a college student. I'm not. I don't even have a college degree, believe it or not. Oops, wrong thing. Let me ask this very simply. John the Intern, has there been an incident of a mass shooting where the person just gave up? Just, shot a bunch of people, walked over and said, I give up.
Wasn't it the movie theater shooting with The Dark Knight? Didn't he try to just go to his car afterwards?
He went to his car, he didn't give up.
No. That's the only time I could ever think of.
Okay. And there's the point, folks. They don't just walk on in. This isn't Hollywood. It's not Seven, where Kevin Spacey walks in and goes, please arrest me. I just killed somebody. No, it doesn't work like that. This isn't Hollywood. I don't understand why so many Democrats and so many of the, and I shouldn't say Democrats, a lot of the progressives, the Democratic Socialists, the far left, why do they always promote this idea, like the Huffington Post, that somehow if we were simply to just pay attention to the Hollywood movies, we would be able to resolve everything. That somehow criminals, because we put out a new law, would become Kevin Spacey and show up and just give themselves up in droves. That somehow they would stop using these weapons, that they would stop misusing them, that they would suddenly no longer have violent tendencies, which has never been proven true. Matter of fact, I think you have an article coming out about this, about the red flag legislation.
Yep.
And let me ask you, John, the Intern, in your article, did you notice, were there any states that didn't have a mass shooting?
And all.
Yeah.
There were a couple. It was Alaska, where there's so just like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of those, so there were 7, I believe it was.
Yeah, 7 or so.
Now, of those 7, let me ask you, did any of them have a red flag law?
I do not believe so.
Right. But if I remember the research right, I saw the article. It was Delaware in 2018, after the Florida, the shooting in Florida, Parkland, after the Parkland shooting in Florida, that's when Delaware added their mass shooting, their red flag legislation. And wasn't it in Delaware that right after they put that in, they had a mass shooting?
Yeah.
They had gone from 2007 to 2018, no mass shootings. They put in the red flag law, suddenly they had a mass shooting.
Yep.
And here's the thing that I want to say about that, folks. If it was as simple as just breaking the law to prevent a criminal from doing something that was bad, guess what? There wouldn't be muggings. There wouldn't be murder. We have a law. It says we have every religion I know of says thou shalt not kill. In some way, shape, or form, they say thou shalt not kill. You shall not commit murder. We have laws against murder. Murder in the first degree, murder second degree, murder in third degree. Murder is a crime. Did you see criminals stop because we have the law? Do you know what the homicide rate is in Chicago? I mean, really, I do it all the time on the show. I show the homicide rate. Have you noticed that they don't seem to care too much that there's a law? And by the way, every single law you could possibly imagine about gun control exists in Chicago. And Chicago leads the nation always in the number of incidents involving a gun and the number of homicides. Right now, there are over 187 people who have been killed in Chicago since the beginning of 2019. There are over, I believe it's 2,000 people who have been injured in Chicago because of a firearm. They have every single gun control bill that has ever been created or even considered in the nation. And you're telling me that we have to get rid of silencers? Let me ask you, if we got rid of every single silencer in the nation, all 1.5 million of them, out of the 350 million guns that exist, the 1.5 million of them that are registered with the United States government, with the special license that is required and the background check that is required to have a silencer, the extra law enforcement involvement in this. And if you got rid of every single one of them, and all 44 cases of silencers were never seen again, would that make anyone safer in the United States, or more importantly, anyone safer in Chicago? That's a math problem for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that would make anyone better?
No.
Can you do the quick math for me? If you were to take 44 and divide it by 350 million, what number do you get?
350 million?
Yeah, 350 million. Yeah. I want to figure out, since we know, according to the ATF, according to the ATF, the proof is that 44 silencer-related crimes happen each year. So, the question is, since we know that's 44, we know there's 350 million people in the United States, your chance of being involved in a silencer-related event is
0.0000125.
Okay, so I don't even know what that works out to. It is a ridiculously small number, but I want to say it again. So your chance, you watching this right now, your chance of being involved in an incident where a silencer will be used is
less than 0.0000001%.
Wow. That is just an immense number of zeros there. I mean, it's just ridiculously small numbers.
It's incredibly unlikely. I mean,
I can get struck by lightning 3 times. More likely to get struck by lightning 3 times.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's impossible because obviously.
No. There's a point. There's 125 in there after all the zeros. There's 125.
So I mean, it's almost close to it, probably.
Yeah, it happens to 44 people in a year, and mind you, that's not even the number of people who were shot.
Do they mention what kind of silencers used? Is it like homemade silencers? Or?
That's including everything. Homemade silencers.
So they could put a bottle on a gun.
Yeah, you can put a bottle on a gun, or as is mentioned in many articles. Matter of fact, there was a report on this in 2007, in case you were wondering, because we do lots of research here. In 2007, according to Paul A. Clark, in his report, Criminal Use of Firearm Silencers, he goes on to mention in there that it is absolutely stupid because any criminal who has half a brain can get the same effect as of using a silencer by putting a towel around a gun that they could for the silencer. And by the way, if they do use a silencer, you get 30 years. It is an automatic 30-year prison sentence. So for the 44 people who are caught and convicted using a silencer, they get a federal 30-year prison sentence. So that makes it pretty simple right there. You get 30 years if you use a silencer. One of the reasons why people don't use silencers in crimes, because no matter what the crime is, even if no one is injured, you get 30 years off the bat. And if you're such a crade, going back to the movies, you're a mobster, and you want to go out and you want to go and, I don't know, do mobster stuff. Like it's, what's that movie with the mobsters? Everyone, Joe Pesci. Goodfellas, that's it, Goodfellas. So you want to be Mr. Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. Guess what? You would use a towel because you're not stupid enough to use a silencer, possibly get caught by the police, who, if you didn't buy them off, because mobsters do go to jail, then you're going to get 30 years instantly for it. A separate of anything else that you did. You know, let's put some logic here. So when we hear people say, well, there's a debate, gun silencers are dangerous, we've got to, why? Because we've had a law since 1934 that has worked? I don't know. When I see that only 44 people are involved, 44 people involved, not killed, not dead, 44 people are involved in using silencers in a year in a country of 350 million people, when the chance of being caught is so ridiculously low that I could probably get better odds of running with scissors on ice, on being able to see. I'm more likely to hurt myself there than with someone involved with a silencer. I think the law is working pretty well. And if they're arguing about this, then the problem isn't the silencer. It's definitely the Huffington Post. It's definitely the people against the Second Amendment who are out there making up some silly Hollywood movie fear and fear-mongering. Because I believe that's what it is. It's fear-mongering. It's stupid. You're worried about someone running around like it's some kind of James Bond, Goodfellas movie, and that's not reality. And anyway, in Goodfellas, what, 3 people? What'd they kill? About 10 people? I mean, there's 350 million people in this nation. If this were a problem, we'd know about it. And it's not because of Virginia Beach. The problem with Virginia Beach was the guy was crazy. He had 2 guns, which weren't assault rifles, according to Huffington Post and other people who don't know anything about firearms. He didn't have any rifles. He didn't have a shotgun, which are both more, he had a handgun. He had 2 handguns. One of them had a silencer. And he knew where he was at. He was crazy. He went out with a criminal intent to kill. I don't care if you get rid of the silencers or not. That doesn't stop his intent to kill and him being crazy. But I've gone over time. This is the end of the episode. We've been here for 2 hours. I hope everyone's been enjoying it. I thank everyone who was in the chat room, including Ken, Mr. Exceptional, who was there. I want to thank everyone who's been checking it out on Facebook, on YouTube, after the fact. Please fight against shadow banning. Like, share, subscribe, spread it around to your friends. Have them do it too. We fight together. We protect our First Amendment rights. We protect all of our freedoms. I thank you. If you can, donate $1 or $2, and look to see us on Tuesday at 1 p.m. for our regular program. We're looking forward to speaking to you then. Otherwise, enjoy the weekend. I'll talk to you soon. And so will Intern John.
Yep.